Hello there. I'm very most probably not going to die, and this makes life very pleasant. However, this email begins with its recounting prior to that break, so keep that in mind as you go through the first few days. Saturday, I, as is my holy and established routine, went to church. I then joined the Southgate people as we gathered around a lone table and did the big squeeze. The conversation was fairly lackluster, not much occurred, but Joe seemed fairly insistent that I stay, nonetheless, so I obliged him. However, eventually a few people left, and thus I too left, in pursuit of a greater use of my time, namely the reading of an expansive metaphysics anthology. I then basically just read my anthology till dinner, before taking a night walk downtown. I observed all the parties, and mused about the oddities of just, what's going on inside those people's head for them to act this way. After that, Grace started reading Chuck Black's book, The Angel Book, the name of which I can't remember, and she really liked it and got hooked. So now she's finally come to realize that reading is fun. The next day, I studied some philosophy, played 2 games of chess with an Indian guy that was staying at our house. Dad knew him through Nexus somehow, and he needed a place to stay. That was on his way to college, because he was going to college in the U.S., and so we housed him for a few days. Of course, I won both games quite handily. I then drove with music and just waited to see if people were free to hang, because I definitely felt socially starved. Joe then got back to me and came over, and we had a 4-hour conversation that was honestly one of my favorites thus far. I discovered that there was a whole dimension of conversation Joe and I hadn't explored yet, because lol, Joe, being SI dominant, he had a very good grip on and enjoys talking about the past. Hence, because I suck at remembering things, I was able to basically ask him questions about what happened, and it was just very interesting. Very good conversation. Honestly, very fun. The big takeaway is my involvement in shaping the course of how things went down was not as big as I thought, and not only that, but there are different things that people deem important. I made a big difference, don't get me wrong, it's just I didn't make objectively as big a difference as I thought, because there were other aspects at play that I didn't really care about, and thus didn't notice. But, nevertheless, I was still quite influential. Though, of course, I don't really mind that, because, those other aspects weren't super important, so the fact that other people were influential with them doesn't matter to me. But still, it was cool to get Joe's perspective on that, and also very interesting to see my own perspective appropriately. After Joe headed back, I then proceeded to stall for a bit before eating the poly food with the family and the Indian guy, which was honestly very good food. I don't know why Dad was insisting on feeding the Indian guy knockoff versions of his own cuisine, because, wouldn't he want to eat American food because he's in America? But regardless, it was good food. I then went on a night walk with Neo, and we talked about a host of things. He had some tough calls to make, so we talked about those. ENFJs, man. I have things to say, but I'm not going to say them. The other thing that happened that night was a brief conversation with Liam, and then more philosophy study for about an hour and a half before bed. The next day was the day before the big scary test, so Johanna and Grace agreed to distract me for the day. After I woke up, Grace took a car over to the Myers, and we picked up Johanna, and we drove to Estes. Once there, we stopped at a Safeway, grabbed some sushi, and then started hiking to this lake. But then Grace was like, I don't wanna. And so we turned around. To be fair, I lost the trail, though, as we were walking through shallow snow, so, it did make the hiking a little less enjoyable. Also, during this whole time, I was gradually working through each of the Myers-Briggs functions and explaining them as in-depth as I could. Once again, my best explanation thus far. Each time I do this, I get better at, breaking MBTI theory down. From there, I went to Ink and Brew, where I kept writing about MBTI theory, and we also read some inspiring cards, the quotes of which I printed for my Lines to Live by doc, or not printed, I pirated. After that, we started our drive back, with still me talking about the Myers-Briggs. As we were like 20 minutes away from home, my speech began to slur, which I found quite concerning and frustrating, and thus we finished the drive in silence. I think I'd been talking about the Myers-Briggs for 4 hours straight. Well, pretty straight at that point. So, that was a popular explanation as why my speech slurred. Anyway, we decided it'd be best to take a break from talking. I had Johanna teach Grace how to derive the cognitive functions from your type code. Here's a picture of that being undergone. Boop. And from there, my mouth recovered, and we spent another 2 hours or so, and I finally got through all the cognitive functions. The biggest surprise for me, however, was how much Grace retained. Johanna took notes, and I kind of expected her to retain a lot because, it's social knowledge. But Grace honestly remembered a lot of it. That was pretty cool. It was literally the next day where she was weaponizing her knowledge against Mom. Yeah, maybe I should be more prudential about whom I give the Myers-Briggs knowledge to. Though to be fair, she's used it fairly responsibly in other cases. And after that, we spontaneously decided it would be a good idea to go buy all the squishy balls. And honestly, that was a fantastic decision. I've used mine constantly, as a fidget toy, as I read and stuff. Very good purchase decision. I recommend you buy a squishy ball. Upon doing that, we came back, stargaze, and while Grace investigated the nature of some obscure constellation, Johanna and I listened to Violet Evergarden music. I actually love listening to my perfectly peaceful playlist while stargazing. Just so beautiful to me. From there, we drove back to Myers, dropped Johanna off, and then came home. Overall, it was a very full day, and I was greatly distracted, so I appreciate it very much. The next day, I woke up at 7:30 and promptly began the lengthy drive to Denver for the PET scan. Once I got there, I got my PET scan. This time, my arms did not fall asleep, which is so much nicer, and then I drove home. Upon getting back in Fort Collins, I picked up free noodle mac and cheese that I had, and then watched Attack on Titan until Joe came over to distract me from the results until they came in. However, as soon as he got there, the hospital sent me an email with results, and I found out the chemo was working! But man, you don't understand how great that feeling was. At first, it kind of came in stages. It wasn't all in one big rush. It was more I'm not going to die? Wait, I can actually believe that. I'm not just, kidding myself. I'm for realsies, probably not going to die. It was an odd phenomenon. Of course, I found out, so I sent an email to all of you, and in the next hour, I was quite preoccupied with responding because all of you were excited with me. And also, I orchestrated a spontaneous celebration dinner, and clearly a celebration was in order. While the spontaneous dinner was percolating, Joe and I went over to Neo's house and played Magic the Conquest, Neo and Maya's homebrew Magic game, until it was time to go back for the spontaneous dinner. From there, people began to arrive at my house, and after a number had gathered, I chose a group, and we headed out early because the reservations lady said we needed to do that. It was a bit of a drive because we were going to Wyoming, but let's be honest, there was no place other than Stanfords that would suit such an occasion. And it was fun. Once we got there, we had to wait for ages for a table big enough to house all 20 of us or so. But once the table finally did, the experience was immaculate. Stanfords has actually such good food. And Alan got endless ribs, so I got to eat as much of those as I wanted because he sat right next to me. So that was also good. Besides the food, though, it was just really cool to see everyone show up like they did for me. And also just a lot of fun conversations happened. Honestly, it was really great. I genuinely have a fantastic community around me. Here's a picture of all of us. Picture. Yep, I'm really glad I did it, and everyone came. On the way back, we switched up cars, and mostly Jake and I chatted until we got home. Once we all returned, people milled about the living room for a bit. The notion of stargazing was put forward and shot down, and then everyone left, leaving Alan, my Alan, as the lone remaining participant. He chatted with Mom and Dad for a bit, and then eventually he, too, faded into the night. All being right with the world and a new hope welling within my soul. After that, I chatted on Discord for a bit and slept. The next morning, I woke up, and then, basically as soon as that happened, bed was over. We spent some time doing our own things, me philosophy, of course, and him reading, and then we devised a plan to go to Celestial Seasons for tea tasting. Pre-chemo fast, all I could do was really taste. Because, yeah, I could have tea, but really I couldn't have any other substances. Hence, we did that. And though we invited many, only Johanna joined us in the end. So, it was still honestly pretty great, though. First, we got to listen to a bunch of Valsy songs in the car, which I always enjoyed. And then we tasted, 15 or so teas. Here are some pictures. And, of course, the man himself enjoying a good tea. We then took a tour of how tea was made, and it was mildly interesting. We bought stickers, because Celestial Season does this cool thing where you purchase your tour ticket, and it counts as store credit in the gift shop, so it was, super free. And then we drove into this cool-looking community center, which I remember from some distant part of my past, which I can't really say which part of it, though, and only to arrive to find their pool was closed. So we then drove to another community center, where we decided, given the time frame, to just head home, because I had to teach philosophy class, so it was still a good way to spend a fasting day for sure, though. On the way back, I think I fell asleep and was awoken by Benji and Johanna singing Verge very loudly. From there, I had some Discord conversations, top philosophy class, and then everyone came over to my house, and Ben dropped by, and we drank tea on my front porch, and that was the day. The next day, I registered for all my easy CSU classes, though the registration was not so easy. I then went in for chemo with Alan and discovered my red blood cells were like, did you know dying is fun? And I don't think it's because of chemo either. It's just because before they were just doing fine. Anyway, something is up with my red blood cells, but I feel, the same, so probably nothing to worry about. So yeah, I got my 6th chemo dose, only 6 more to go. Yay! But the nice thing is, because my PET scan came back positive, they've taken out part of my chemo, which makes me not have to take Benadryl. So I'm no longer sleepy during the experience, which honestly makes it significantly better. Also, I must say, Alan has taken the title of favorite chemo buddy, and our conversation was, let's say, unorthodox in terms of our conversations. But as a result, quite good. He then drove me home. I watched some Attack on Titan, watched this pretty well done movie about being able to sell your time, then watched more Attack on Titan, watched a so-so anime movie with Grace Emerson, and did some MBTI research and slept. The following day, my stomach did not like me at all, and that was quite unpleasant. I then read through part of Nardi's newest book, but honestly it was kind of bad. I don't think you could make a bad MBTI book, but the way it's formatted and composed really makes it hard to get precise information from it. So yeah, haven't really touched it more since then. I don't know exactly what I'm going to do with it. After that, I compared my personality stats from where I was a month back, and I've grown in both my FI and FE fairly significantly according to those results. Honestly, I was listening to Personality Hacker podcast, but knowing your FI as an inferior function, and I think I'm actually doing it pretty well. All the things that we're saying, I was like, oh yeah, I already do that. So who knows? Maybe I'm actually pretty good in that domain. After that, I had food, felt pretty bad after having eaten, took a bath, read some, took a nap, felt better, and read some more, and then slept. Upon the rising of the sun, I too arose and did philosophy. I then went to church, and at lunch, the conversation consisted of vying for Lily's loyalty, with the potential suitors being Johanna and Joe, though Sam was also later advocated as an excellent option. Basically, it was me, Joe, and Benji against Johanna, and it was a ton of fun. But honestly, Johanna held her own. I then went to D&D, and at D&D did things. I then ate food, and because I was very tired, because steroids, I went home and took a nap. Once I arose, I did Funime, studied more philosophy, went on a walk listening to Personality Hacker, and then went to sleep for realsies. Then it was Monday. I spent some time communicating with all the people for the Hot Springs trip, met up with Dylan, and briefed him on MBTI stuff, in payment for which I received free food. Then Grace and I journeyed to Joe's house, where Karina and him taught us how to swing dance. In general, I think I learned things somewhat slowly in the dancing department, but regardless, I did get stuff down. We then did some karaoke on Joe's mini karaoke machine, and also discovered it's a miracle that I can sing as well as I do, because my note matching skills are garbage. It was around this point, as Grace and I absolutely failed at singing idle in Japanese, that people began arriving, and hence food was eaten and D&D commenced. That went well. I discovered very new and inventive ways to engage in skyship warfare. Wall of Force. But overall, a decent session. After that, we just chatted for a bit, and then we went home. The next day, in the morning, I had some conversations over Discord, read my anthology for a bit, did Funame, Neo and Sydney came over for a vibe session as I did more philosophy. I then met up with Toby, the Rutgers philosophy guy, and talked for 3 hours while eating super spicy wings. Like, holy cow, I was unable to form sentences because my mouth just burned. So we went to Pizza Castle this time, and Toby spotted me, and he was like, last time. And Toby spotted me and was like, I got you. And so he let... Oh, I was like, yeah, I remember paying for it. That's why I was confused. Okay, I was like, I got you. And then I let him, choose some wings to split. And so he checked in with me before choosing the jalapeno flaming hot ball of death wings. And I was like, how hot can it be? So I said, sure. It was such a mistake. They were so spicy. I drank like 5 glasses of water trying to eat 6 wings, and smothering them in ranch did very little to reduce the physical pain of consuming those things. But I did it. It took me like over an hour of slow, agonizing consumption, but I ate my allotted portion. So yeah, that was honestly one of the worst meals I've had. It super sucked. But otherwise, the conversation was good. We danced around some meta topics and ended up with Toby being like, look, man, I don't usually say this because it takes a very special kind of person to actually benefit from grad school. But for once, I'm going to say it. You need to go to grad school. Apparently, reading the Blackbird Metaphysics Anthology makes you fit right in with the people that are crazy enough to do philosophy PhDs. So yeah, we talked it over, and apparently there may be ways to skip the whole undergrad process and just go straight to grad school, even at prestigious places like Rutgers or Princeton. So at this point, I'm tentatively considering that might be part of my future. I mean, it's really unlikely I could just like hack the system, but I may give it a shot sometime in the future. And if it works, I'll let you know. So yeah, that was our convo, and probably the last one I'll have with him for quite a while, because while it was nice to talk to someone about with someone at my level, all our conversations weren't super productive. So I was basically like, hey, could we not talk unless I have a particular topic I want to talk about? And he was like, yeah, okay, that sounds like a plan. And so that was really cool of him. So yeah, moving forwards, I have a Toby on tap. Once I got home, I read some more of my Magic Diamond book. I went on a very windy walk, took a shower, and then slept. I was then awoken to a mouse crawling on my head. So that was fun. But I was kind of just like, there's a mouse on my head. And then it scurried away. So I wasn't really affected by it. But I understand a lot of people probably would find that, experience much more deeply concerning. However, the mouse woke me up, and I noticed Esther had texted me because she was, reading through some of her old diaries, and she was basically like, thanks for being a good friend and still being around after all this time. So yeah, the warm fuzzies made me kind of like override the whole mouse experience. The next morning, I worked on applying to all the cancer scholarships I could, because, if you have cancer, might as well make monetary gain from it. I then read more philosophy. Joe came over. We went on a windy walk and we talked. And it wasn't the most enjoyable because the wind was strong and cold, so we ended up talking more on the front porch. The conversation was also very different from the sort Joe and I usually have, and hence it was quite interesting and novel. Once we finished that talk, we went over to Wendy's, got food, and played 2 Magic games where I did horribly and Joe crushed me. Hence, after that, I was like, well, that was fun, but I'm socially out now, and so Joe went home. I then experienced back pain. I don't know why this started happening to me. I didn't do much about it, and then a great thing happened. See, for those of you who've been around for a while, you may recall that Molly Miller, my oldest friend, we hiked a lot together. So yeah, she recently got a boyfriend, which, no offense, Molly, but that was quite surprising to hear. Just gotta say, Molly isn't your typical sweet, feely woman. She's more like... Actually, I think I'm gonna stop giving alternative descriptions because it's in my best interest not to do that. So I'm just gonna not. Anyway, a while back, I texted Cable and Molly trying to catch up with the two of them and found out Molly had a boyfriend, and now the time had come to meet him. Hence, we had this lovely little text exchange. Matt is coming. Oh, this is Molly. Matt is officially coming, so you two better behave. She doesn't sound like this at all. Define behave. Shirts on and spears are left at home. So what I'm hearing is pants are optional. I guess that's up for interpretation. And so, I got the explicit go-ahead to not wear pants. And if I was going to not do anything with that, that would be a waste. So I hit up Caleb before we left, since I was carpooling from his house, and I was like, yo, you still got kilts? And he was like, yeah. Hence, for the first time in my life, I wore a skirt. I wore a kilt. And I must say, the world got a little more breezy. Also in the frigid cold. Here's a picture of me kilted up. You can't see much in that picture. And I recognize you can see absolutely nothing in that photo, but whatever. And yeah, me, Cable, and his wife, Jessica? Judy. Jehosaphat. Okay, I literally forgot her name. It started with a J, and I remember, I really hope she doesn't read this because she's an ISFJ and will be genuinely offended that I forgot her name if she finds out. Also, sorry, Cable's wife, if you ever read this. I did enjoy your presence, but I don't remember your name for the life of me. Let's hope that doesn't come back to haunt me. Anyway, moving up, I rode with Cable and Ja to this tavern place, and we sat in our little private tent that looked like this. The restaurant was honestly pretty fancy, and more than that, pretty expensive. I paid like $30 for my meal. $30! It wasn't even good. But anyway, after a bit, Molly and her boyfriend, whose name I can't remember, we'll call him Da Boy, arrived, and we started chatting. It was at this point, as the fancy food arrived and the two couples sat across from me, that I had a very strange, oh my gosh, I'm an adult feeling smack me across the face. Like, here I was, engaging in polite conversation about my friend's love life of all things over a meal that was costing me $30, and that I didn't even enjoy. When did I get here? It's like the fun time my parents would have with their old family friends, seeing the movies of the grown-up get-togethers. I just found the whole occasion quite odd, and I felt as if I had this weird, coming-of-age moment. It was as if I found myself transported into reality I previously thought belonged only to others, and yet I found that the deed of its ownership is in my very hands. I initiated this gathering, and I mean, sure, my OG intent wasn't for either of these significant others of my respective friends to come, but otherwise this was exactly as I planned it to be, and without realizing it, I had willingly chosen this adulty activity, and I could blame no other. So yeah, that was weird, and I couldn't help but think about how I must seem from an outsider's perspective. But I didn't think about that for long, because there was da boy to interrogate. Though honestly, I didn't do much interrogation. I mostly listened to him tell their tales and gave a brief recap of my own life things, because, cancer. Always gotta talk about cancer. Anyway, da boy was pretty charismatic, and like a god physically. Might be going to the Olympics kind of level, good at running. He was enjoyable, but I don't know. He didn't strike me as epic. He seemed like a dude, not exceptional in either direction. But that's just how he appeared to me. So yeah, the event was good. It got later. As it got later, I was wearing down my small talk capacity, so I was glad it ended. However, on the way back, Caleb and Wait! It's Julia. Her name is Julia. Ha! Take that, selective memory. First try. Anyway, Cable and Julia got me going on theoretical topics like sensationalism and hell, and that revitalized me. Once we got back, Julia invited me to stay for hot chocolate, so I did, and then I proceeded to break down what's happening in their relationship and why MBTI is great. It seemed like what I had to say really helped them make sense of their experience. That was cool. And then once that ended, I went home and slept. Also, because I don't know when the timeline I've received this, Elkin sent this to me all the way from New Zealand, and I've actually been loving it. It's a cloak. It's an attack. I say that. It's an Attack on Titan Scout's cloak, and it's super comfy. So I've been wearing it around basically whenever I'm in the house, and it's a bit cold. Next day, I read philosophy for ages, did a food made break, helped Grace set up the dash cam in her car, and remind her to check her oil, because I swear she's going to forget for 2 months and kill her car through neglect. I then drove out to the Myers and began the hot spring trip I organized. The car ride was decent. Noah and Grace largely carried the conversation, and it wasn't about much in particular. See, I considered trying to do old times and do a deep conversation, but I didn't have the motivation for me to do that. Honestly, oddly enough, I think I've been converted to being normal in this regard, because I've come to often prefer small talk conversations to deep ones, especially in group settings. One-on-one, I still roll with the deep ones, but predominantly that's just, I just have, anyway, now that I see. Now that I have the feels, I can see the merit of small talk. They feel good. Sure, nothing useful is done, but a vibe is created and everyone gets to partake of it, and that feels nice. I think it was because of this that I was blind. Before I was blind to the vibe and couldn't join in, and that's why I found small talk so unfulfilling. But now that I can see it and join in this weird voodoo dance, I understand where everyone's coming from. Still objectively pointless, but I really do want to, But I didn't really want to put in the effort and maintain a contrary, deep conversation vibe, most times. So yeah, drove out there. The vibe was decent, not god tier, but decent. And then we got to Saratoga and we stopped this one burger joint, which actually turned out to be really good. Here's a picture of us doing that. Just, Sam's always watching you. I want to point that out. Always. From there, we went to the hot springs, and it was big cold, but honestly, that made it so much better. Our hair all froze, and honestly looked pretty cool. And Benj and I, with others joining in, did cold plunge challenges, which felt real weird, but good the more you did it. You'd be chilling in the hot water beside the river, right? And then you would experience death, and then you would come back to the hot water, and you'd feel your whole body had fallen asleep and get spikier. It was like pins and needles across your whole body. Very interesting experience. We got everyone to join us in doing that for at least once, so that was fun. Also, Johanna was a fairly regular participant. Couldn't just let Benj and I out SE her. The spot by the river was really cool. Not only was it super warm, but the mist rising up at the lights and the more natural surroundings just gave a very cool aura about it. We sang songs with varying success, and that was it. We headed back. After picking up some snacks and vibing on the way back was peak. It was also very nice being in the front seat because I didn't have to engage as much. Oh, also the roads were real sketch driving back, snow blowing everywhere. But nevertheless, Benj safely navigated us back home. And that was that. Here's 2 pictures of the hot springs. And frozen hair. The next day consisted of me waking up, doing philosophy for a bit, and then meeting up with Amelia Alleycat to catch up on her romantic life. And honestly, it was a very good conversation. She actually landed a pretty good guy by the sounds of it. Myers-Briggs type analysis, if I'm correct, is an ENTP. Mostly, it was just exciting to see Amelia in such a healthy and happy place. Watching FJs get healthy is becoming a particular pastime of mine. So yeah, we talked for about 3 hours about all sorts of stuff, and then we parted ways, and it was great. After that, I got to recharge my social battery by slogging through philosophy reading for 3 hours, and then I did something even during the trip Alex could not bring himself to do. I danced. See, back when I was on the trip, one activity I chickened out on, and it was going swing dancing with the group. Hence, on this glorious day, I got to rectify that failure, and I think I may have genuinely reached Alex 2.1 or something. Like, it was a big step for me. So yeah, I just decided that I was going to dance, and it was going to be in my best interest to enjoy it. And so it turned out I had a fantastic time. Like, swing dancing is actually super fun. Who would have thought? The only thing I couldn't bring myself to do was freestyle dance. That was past my limits of TE overriding. But nevertheless, I did the rest of it, and danced with a bunch of females, and that I kind of knew, and it was great. On my way home, I almost hit a car. In fact, I would have hit him for sure if he didn't see me not slowing down in time, and so he decided to pull forward. Thank you, nameless guy. You're awesome. It was icy, that's why. So that was a big scare. And then after that, I went to sleep. As for yesterday, I slept poorly because I had bad night sweats like all night, so that sucked. But otherwise, the day was fairly uneventful. I chatted over Discord some, did some philosophy till John was ready for me to drive over to him. And we went to Shields, and we kind of meandered around looking at guns and talking. He then brought me to In and Out. We drove back and went to a smoke shop with him because he wanted to buy some cigars. Very interesting vibe. Very, like, chill and manly. Totally see why Matt Fradd is all about cigars, not gonna lie. There's some appeal to that culture. And then from there, we very efficiently built my new D&D character, and I drove him home. I drove John home, not my D&D character. Before I left John's house, though, I was given a Kindle by the Ratio people, which is really cool, and made a Feel Better card, which is also mildly nice. Once I got home, I sat and thought for an hour before eating some food, working this life deal, and doing some philosophy, and then going to sleep. And then finally, as for today, I got up, went to church, socialized, played my new therapist D&D character, D&D, because Eldon be gone now, and that was a lot of fun. I then journeyed with the friend group to Panera, ate food there, and was about to join them in a card game when Ben texted me and was like, "The ice cream plan is happening." So I rushed off to do that. And I ate ice cream at the presence of the extended Southgate friend group. And then I came home and have been working on this email ever since. And that's it. The most recent rendition of what I've in fact done with my life. You're welcome.